Peer review. So this is something we stress about, but at the same time, this is why we internally work so hard to keep ourselves on par, essentially. So CPA Alberta, every 2 years, they look at the work of every single CPA firm in Alberta. And they want to make sure they keep everyone accountable. And if an accountant's doing such poor work, and that they'd eventually get shut down or have their designation stripped from them. So they are held to a high standard. The level of quality, there's every 2 year period, a big chunk of these get looked at, and it gets pretty detailed. I tell you, we're having ours coming up now, and it's part of the time where we are really on high alert, because we're just making sure that let's keep everything as high. We set a really high bar, so nothing can possibly ever anger the CPA gods, in a sense. So, and I think True North, we do a really good job of it. I make sure we do. We all make sure we do. So it is the signature line on that notice to reader report signed by a CPA firm. Actually, it does mean something beyond just a financial statement printed from a bookkeeping system. It does tell you that there is a lot in the background that goes on behind the scenes to make sure it's good.
And Curtis, do you want to tell us about how working papers support the financial statements? And I guess before you do that, I just want to remind people that there is the ask a question function. So if you have any questions about any of this, get in there, ask it, and we'll answer. There's none in there right now, so we're just going to keep talking until there's some questions in there.
See, I think we're setting a record today. We're doing such a good job. Not a single person has a question. Maybe that's the case. We'll keep going though. So working papers, essentially, this is what CPA Alberta is looking at. When we create a financial statement, we're not just taking numbers and putting them into a template and making a financial statement. There's so much more, from the buildup of looking at the bookkeeping to verifying not verifying every single. I should watch how I phrase it, but I think we have an example later on. But this, from the simplest form, right here. So the simplest example is cash listed on the bank statement. And you might just see the financial statements, but behind the scenes, what's happening is we need to show that we've double checked that is the exact cash balance as of January 31st, 2021. And we have the supporting document to prove it. So often bank statement's pretty easy, cash balance is easy. We've got a printout of the bank statement showing the cash balance that matches. And it gets quite a bit more complex as you go down and you get some of the more detailed or complex balances. But the verification process, it's not just taking numbers and plunking them into a financial statement. There's quite a bit behind it, and that's essentially what CPA Alberta does when they do their peer reviews. They do their practice review, and they want to make sure that you are doing everything you need to, and you're not skipping steps, you're not missing anything. Bulletproof financial statements.
And another example of this is when we talked about adjusting journal entries for mortgage. We have the mortgage, but then we were like, hey, we need to calculate mortgage interest. We would do an amortization schedule, have that set up as a working paper, and showcase how we got to the mortgage interest and why we recorded it in the income statement, and made that adjustment journal entry.
Mm-hmm.
And this slide here, I know previously Matt and I have kind of had conversations on how it works in the not off sector, but non-CPAs, accountants that aren't CPA firms. They're not technically required to do this level. And because they're not CPAs, maybe they're not registered with the Institute, so they technically shouldn't be issuing any type of notice to reader engagement. But there's no one really keeping them accountable, so they don't have to check in with anyone. CPA firms have oversight that ensure the work's done properly, so the stakeholders, users, they know what they're getting when it's signed at the bottom, True North Accounting LLP. But it is funny. We often see, sometimes we've seen prior accountants where we look at them and it's like, well, this doesn't really make sense, but nobody's actually checking on your stuff, because I guess realistically, it's a bookkeeper putting just preparing a printout of the financial and the T2, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't need notice to reader financial statements and you're comfortable with the level of what's going on, then it might be fine. It might be all you need, but there is a difference. And no, no accountability in that sense, or comparability is one thing that struck us before. It made us kind of think about.
Yeah, not anybody can call themselves an accountant, and there's such a wide range of skills in the undesignated accounting world. So some might be really good, or some, might just be taking your QuickBooks entries at like what you did on your own at face value and dumping them into a different format and doing your tax return. And we see files from other accountants. It's like, where do they get these numbers? This is not making any sense. And there's like plugs that can make it all balance. But yeah, you can see right on the notice to reader page on your financial statements, if it's a chartered professional accounting firm, it has to have that in the name. Like that has to be in the legal name of the company. So if it's like True North Professional Corporation or something like that, then it's not a CPA firm. And you can have a CPA with a accounting firm, but it doesn't mean it's a CPA firm. And technically they shouldn't, but they might not be a Canadian CPA as well. So yeah, that CPA in the name, that's what you want to look for. And yeah, CPAs do charge a little bit more because there is that whole piece of having the working papers and needing all that documentation, needing the sign off, needing to keep everything for 7 years. And then we get audited every 2 years on the work we've done. So they're taking a handful. They'll probably pick 10 of our clients, and we have to send our working papers to Edmonton, and somebody there is reviewing everything, how we did it, and giving us a report card on that. And then there's also CPA, like professional liability insurance. So if we screw something up really bad, you, as a client of ours, you can go to the CPA Alberta board and report us or make a claim. And if we're not doing our job right, or like there is that watchdog or that whistleblower entity, and it's across Canada. So there is somebody to report us to, where, yeah, if we were a wild, wild west accounting firm, there's nobody to complain to. And your finances are a big piece of your business. Like if you do have any significant financial plans, you want to have good financial records.
I've got a live example actually today. A client that I know pretty well, they emailed me, and I came in this morning, I checked my email, and they needed some financing. And I won't touch on any of the details, but they forwarded me an email, and it was an ask from their financial guy. And it was a big ugly list of stuff they needed. And it included notice to reader financial statements for 2 years, amongst like a big chunk of other things they wanted. And the simplicity of already having it done with us for a few years meant that I was just able to drag and drop these things right to them, plunk, send, and I'm like, hey, forward it to your financial guy, and you've got everything you need. And it was, that might be the smoothest financing thing he'll have for long. If he had not had notice to reader financial statements, panic ensues, and he's probably not getting the funds that he's after. So, but it was just, that actually happened this morning. So
yeah, like just as an example, like a CP, just for the year end, if the bookkeeping's all done and we're just doing the tax return and the financial statements, a CPA firm will charge like somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 to do all that work, whereas a non-designated accounting firm will charge like $1,000 to 2,000. So it's probably like a, call it a $800 difference on average in price. But if it means the difference of getting a $500,000 loan or mortgage or operating line, that's a pretty cheap investment. But yeah, I would think of it as an investment.
Not being audited. Like there's other, besides the financing, the other preventative measures. It's almost like buying a brand new Rolls Royce but not getting collision. You got this smoking hot business, it's doing so well, and well, you got in a car accident rolling out of the dealership, and now you didn't get collision on your insurance, so you just got the basic liability, and guess who's paying for all the repairs?
Exactly.